Republicans in the Florida State House are on the verge of passing a potentially dangerous, potentially deadly new law. It would allow for what is called permitless carry. That means that people in the state of Florida might soon be able to carry a weapon without anything, without any sort of license from the state. Never mind the data, which shows that such policies have resulted in significant bumps, hikes in gun homicides after they are introduced. And never mind the public polling, never mind how we the people feel. It shows that 77% of Florida voters, including 62% of Florida's Republicans, for God's sake, stand opposed to permitless carry legislation. In fact, you might never know it, considering Republicans there recently put a cap on public comment on the measure to 1 minute, 60 seconds per person, limiting First Amendment rights to ram through a law that misinterprets the second. Joining our coverage, Fred Guttenberg. His daughter Jamie was killed in the Parkland school shooting. Fred is our friend, but he's also, importantly, the co-author of the book American Carnage, Shattering the Myths That Fuel Gun Violence. With us at the table, former Republican Congressman, MSNBC contributor, our friend David Jolly. Fred, I follow you, and so I first saw this story from following your Twitter feed. Tell us what happened.
So Florida, under our dim-witted and honestly weak-minded governor, is on the path to passing permitless carry. And what they've done is they're doing it in a way where they didn't want anyone to really notice what they're doing, because they've pretty much canceled debate. And here's how they did it. They scheduled very minimal debate hours, and they only scheduled witnesses for a total of 1 minute. 1 minute. If I were to go there and debate. And they're front loading with their witnesses. And so the witnesses like me who would have been on the back end may end up with less than 1 minute. I gotta say, hey, Governor, I watch you this week talk about Florida's a state where woke goes to die, whatever the hell that means. But the truth is, Florida's gonna be the state where people are gonna go to die because of this. If you really believe this is what Floridians want, which, by the way, over 70% of them do not, but if you really believe this is what Floridians want, have the cojones, have the testicular fortitude to have a real debate, a real hearing, bring people in who really can talk about what this will mean, but don't do it in the shadows.
What is the purpose of doing something that 66% of Florida Republicans oppose, Fred?
Red meat. They're all in on the base. You know, listen, it is unfortunate, but DeSantis has done this before. We've seen the playbook. Think back to last year with Don't Say Gay and the public session that they brought everybody back to Tallahassee for, that was supposed to actually be used to deal with an insurance crisis in the property markets that they created. And they didn't use it for the insurance crisis. Instead, they used it to punish Disney. They're all in on red meat. They don't care right now about what happens in Florida because he's running for president. And so, listen, again, he's weak. He does not want to face people. He wants to have his manufactured moments. But if he thinks I'm wrong, if he thinks I'm wrong about whether or not he's weak, hey, Gov, I'll meet you anytime, any place. Let's debate.
Has he ever responded to your offer to debate, Fred?
No, he's weak. And he won't.
Yeah, I mean, David Jolly, I think he's weaker politically than national Republicans and national conservative media figures recognize. And I've come to that through reading. I mean, we're going to do this other story based on this unbelievable firing of a local prosecutor. I mean, he doesn't do his homework. He doesn't drill down beneath a half an inch. And his instincts are not so great. He's running against 66% of his own state's Republicans. When you get to Iowa and you have your state's Republican voters saying, not so much, that is a terrible launch into a national political moment.
You know, Ron DeSantis won the state of Florida by 20 points in November, and his takeaway was he had a mandate. My takeaway is America doesn't want to be Florida. because the rest of the country chose a different direction. So we're about to test whether or not he is the ultimate evangelist for this doctrine that he wants to purvey upon the street will win hearts and minds across the country, or is Florida really out of step? And I think Florida's really out of step. I mean, what Fred is talking about is a critical issue to families and children in the state of Florida. So what they're debating now is permitless carry. So you can carry a gun whether or not the government tells you you're allowed to or not. But what Ron DeSantis is going to do next spring is open carry, meaning when my kids go into a grocery store, they get to watch people walking around with guns on their hips. That's a very dangerous environment. To your point, then, is that out of step with the rest of the country? It absolutely is. That's what we learned in November, that the politics of Florida right now are out of step nationally. Ron DeSantis wants to prove otherwise. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, but he's running as two sort of failed models. I mean, he's running more like Doug Mastriano and Kari Lake.
That's right.
Than he is running like J.D. Vance and the guys that eke through. So even if you take the extremism, it didn't work in other battlegrounds. It didn't work anywhere.
Yeah.
What he's running on.
I think this is where the other Republican presidential candidates have a lane that they're examining, right? So Ron DeSantis has doubled down on Trumpism in a big way. But Trumpism continues to lose. So it wins in Florida, but it loses nationally. And I think if you're Nikki Haley, Mike Pompeo, Mike Pence, and others, is there a lane for you then to challenge that? Maybe there is.
All right, Fred.